Today on Rescue USA.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Every second counts when a violent storm strikes Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Oh my goodness.
Nobody was talking about the potential of a tornado.
Then, a devastating forest fire has first responders jumping in to save everyone and everything they can.
It was intense, a lot of fire activity, just bumping and running from structure to structure.
Nestled in the northeast corner of Oklahoma, Tulsa doesn't get as many tornadoes as you might think. It's surprising because Oklahoma overall is the state that ranks third for the most twisters each year. So on a seemingly normal summer night, many were stunned when an EF2 tornado emerged out of the darkness and struck right in the heart of downtown.
Situated on the Arkansas River, Tulsa is the second largest city in Oklahoma. Although it's a major metropolitan area, it still retains a small-town feel. On any given summer night, you can find people enjoying a backyard barbecue, catching a movie at the drive-in theater, or strolling along the Tulsa Riverwalk. But as it turns out, the night of August 5th, 2017 would not be as peaceful. As the sun set that evening, Celia Daniel took the opportunity to meet up with a few friends. On this night, she also brought along her 9-year-old son.
It started raining, and we all decided to go to a restaurant. I had my middle boy with me. There was probably about 10 of us there.
While the storm clouds put a damper on their evening, the last thing on anyone's mind was a tornado. After all, it was midsummer, well beyond tornado season.
Typically, sirens would go off from National Weather Service or Tulsa Area Emergency Management to warn us. They're actually designed for when people are outside. It gives people some advance warning to go to shelter.
Initially, that was the reports that we were getting, that it possibly was a microburst.
Lasting from a few seconds to a few minutes, microburst downdrafts are sudden, concentrated downward bursts of wind. Once the wind hits the ground, it spreads out in all directions. Often, gusts exceed 100 miles per hour. But on this night, the storm wasn't a microburst, but actually a tornado, and it struck before any siren could be sounded.
There was no advance warning, and earlier in the day when they said there might be a thunderstorm, nobody was talking about the potential or possibility of a tornado.
Unaware of the looming danger, Celia and her group decided to order some food at the restaurant and wait out the storm.
We were all checking out, fixing to get ready to leave. Well, when I turned around, it was pouring down rain. I love lightning storms and rain and stuff like that, so I pulled my phone out and started recording. We noticed that things were like moving across the parking lot, like it just started raining like really, really heavy.
Oh my goodness.
A few moments later, Celia captured cell phone footage of a nearby transformer bursting.
Everyone just kind of just starts to run. I grabbed my son and wrapped my body around him, and then you couldn't see nothing. Everything just went pitch black.
The tornado smashed through the walls of the restaurant where Celia and her son were sitting at their booth.
And then just not even seconds later, something came through the window and hit me in the back of the head and launched me and my son across the restaurant. I thought it was like in a dream. I kept hearing my son screaming.
Security cameras at a nearby business caught the sheer ferocity of this tornado.
The whole roof came down on us. I didn't even realize how badly I was injured or anything like that. The only thing I cared about was getting my son to safety. So they helped me over this wall at the restaurant to get me back to the freezer. And at the freezer, that was when one of the waiters noticed my arm, my right arm. Like they said there was nothing like there, that I was just bleeding out. So he took his shirt off and packed it into my arm.
Celia needed urgent medical attention. Luckily, the firemen of Station 25 were ready and on their way. but Celia was losing consciousness fast.
My body was literally just going right then and there. I remember them telling me, no, we're gonna get you out of here. The fire department's on their way, and probably not even 10 minutes later, like, here's the fire department.
In that moment, they were ready, they were prepared, they were committed. They don't stop to think about it. They run in knowing that someone was inside the restaurant that was in dire need of their help. They ran at their own risk, at their own peril, to get her out.
We start assessing her. She's our most critical. She had very large laceration on her arm. She had some head injuries. I believe she had a back injury also. We wrapped her arm up, we stabilized her. She was a load and go. We got her loaded up and she was on her way to the hospital.
But no one knew yet the true extent of Celia's injuries. In the early morning hours of August 6, 2017, a tornado blasted through Tulsa, Oklahoma. The tornado spun up so quickly, there was no time to alert the city that the line of storms had turned tornadic.
Typically, we're more accustomed to getting tornadoes in the springtime. Being in August, it was totally surprised. The National Weather Service wasn't reporting anything like that, so we didn't get any kind of warnings.
But Celia Daniel had been in a late-night restaurant when the roof collapsed on her. She was quickly rushed to the hospital.
I think that total spent like 15 hours in surgery, removing all the glass and stuff. I remember the doctor coming in and telling me, you're lucky you're not paralyzed or even dead.
Once the immediate danger had passed, folks in Tulsa were discovering just how much damage the tornado had done. Like Jared Joseph, who was on vacation when he got word of the devastation. He soon learned his family's business was one of the hardest hit.
We saw one of the local news guys was talking about the storm and there's some damage here, and then I heard my uncle's voice in the background. I could hear him say, that's my building right there. And that's when I went, oh boy. So it got real at that point for me.
When Jared arrived the next morning, he saw what that tornado had done to his warehouse.
It didn't look that bad at first glance, but then we walked inside and saw that the roof was pretty much completely gone. It was like a big convertible. You just looked up and saw blue sky. And the office itself, it's pretty amazing. You get a storm like that, and there's stuff that weighs thousands of pounds that's flipped over and tossed all over the place. We knew at that point, this is gonna be a big loss, and I don't know how we're gonna deal with this.
Not only was the building destroyed, but the trees out front had been uprooted, and they held a special meaning to the family business.
When the family bought the building, that's one of the first things they did was plant trees in the front yard. My uncle planted them. He had watched this place grow with those trees, so he was pretty upset to see them go.
Jared knew he needed help to rebuild.
I knew that we were gonna have a lot of work ahead of us with this. I mean, what we saw, we weren't even sure really where to begin. What we were gonna do with it. I saw across the street the guy working, so I went over there and said, I need you to come talk to me because we need help. And so they came over, explained how it all worked, and we said, let's do this. We need to get on it now. And it wasn't very long after that, the cleanup process started.
While the disaster restoration team focused on the task of reconstruction, Jared needed to get his business up and running.
We found a place, we called it the bunker. It was about a 25-foot by maybe 14-foot wide building. We put fold-out tables, put computers on them, got a server up and running. And we were back in business, and they were all literally working elbow to elbow.
After several months of construction, Jared's business was back and better than ever.
One of the other cool things we were able to do as part of the reconstruction project here, we were able to bring the buildings up to current code. Some of that included putting wheelchair accessible, so we added ramps to both buildings that were not there before.
And there was one final touch to make this project complete.
As the business grew and flourished, so too did these trees out front, representing the growth within the walls of this business. And to have lost them during that tornado, it was heartfelt.
Oh, absolutely.
And to have these trees show up again today and get replanted where they belong, to know that they're going to continue to grow well into the future.
In the months after the tornado, Celia Daniel also faced a long road to recovery.
I had to literally sit up for 3 months. Couldn't bend my legs, nothing like that. Couldn't even move.
Despite many difficulties, things are looking up for Celia and her family.
You can either choose to let it knock you down, or you can just keep just trying no matter what, and no matter how hard it is, you just put a smile on your face and keep trying.
Now Celia has the chance to personally thank the men who saved her life.
Celia, right?
Yes, yes.
It's good to meet you.
Were you one of the firefighters?
Yes. Me and Travis were the ones that you initially saw first that opened the door.
I owe you guys everything. I wouldn't be here today and be here for my boys if it wasn't for you guys. My son did this for you guys, and then he signed this.
Okay. And I just want to let you know how much I appreciate you for saving me and my mom. Well, that's great. I'll tell him thank you very much.
I've been wanting to see him for a long time now and shake their hand and tell them how good of a job they did.
It was very good to meet you.
It was nice meeting you too.
Redding, a city cradled within the rugged mountains of Northern California, offers unparalleled views of the outdoors. But one summer night, one small spark sent everything up in flames. It became the ultimate battle between first responders and Mother Nature. A few brave men, though, came out on top when they decided to lend a helping hand to a few wild animals.
The city of Redding, in Northern California, is a sleepy community nestled against the foothills of the Sierra Nevada. This majestic mountain range offers so many activities, like hiking, camping, and fishing on nearby Whiskeytown Lake. But on July 23, 2018, an enormous wildfire known as the Carr Fire swept through these mountains, destroying more than 200,000 acres.
I think fire activity is picking up now, so it's more of the new norm. With California's drought conditions and relative humidities being what they are for as long as they have been, we're going to have longer fire seasons and larger and more intense fires.
It's believed the Carr Fire started when a recreational trailer had a blowout, causing sparks from the metal wheel to ignite dry brush on the side of the road.
We just had a mechanical failure and pulled over, and then the fire started, and then it just kind of blew up from there. Basically, that whole mountain in front of us was on fire.
Seeing on the news, it was really different than actually seeing it in person. The power lines were burning, telephone poles were on fire, trees were on fire, stuff was falling as we were driving up. It was pretty impressive, the amount of devastation.
The fire quickly spread, and while the people evacuated their homes, the wildlife had to fend for themselves. Cal Fire engineer Brian Coffey was working to save a home when a fellow fireman literally stumbled upon a frightened animal in desperate need of help.
The firefighter tripped over something that he thought was a rock. Then when we looked down and around, we saw this little fawn that was blending in with the grass. The deer was obviously very scared. There was no way we were going to leave that deer there. So I picked the deer up. I had my firefighter get in the backseat of the engine.
Brian's first obligation was to fight the fire, so he needed someone to take care of the fawn and bring it to safety. Minutes later, California Highway Patrolman David Fawson arrived.
One of the firemen asked us, "Do you have room for a deer to get out of here?" And as he's carrying it to me, he says, "Here you go." And this thing's probably no more than 30 days old. So as we drove down the road, we found an area where the fire already went through. I actually got out of the car and put the deer down thinking it would just run away from us. But as I set the deer down, it started pacing around me and it wasn't running away.
While Sergeant Fawson needed to figure out what to do with the fawn, Jeffrey Stoddard received a call about another animal in distress.
We just had a report about a bear that was injured, possibly burned.
We had a general area of location where it was supposed to be, but wildlife moves. We pretty much conducted a small search of this area, and then the bear was actually found right down there next to the creek.
She's a really petite, small bear, so she could have been with her mom this year and separated during the fire, or she could have just started being out on her own.
Her paws were extremely burnt. We decided that she wasn't going to make it on her own, left to her own devices.
On July 23, 2018, the Carr Fire scorched more than 200,000 acres of land above Redding, California, making it one of the largest wildfires in California's history.
Through the heroic efforts of first responders, many lives were saved, including a number of frightened and injured animals.
However, workers from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife were now racing against the clock to help an unlikely victim of the wildfire, a young black bear. With severely injured paws, the cub was put under the care of veterinarian Jamie Payton of UC Davis, who was now working on a revolutionary burn treatment.
We had to really think about how could we create a bandage that would provide protection, pain relief, and also help with healing. We had heard that they were trying tilapia down in Brazil for people, and I thought, well, could we do something similar for animals?
Tilapia is a freshwater fish that inhabit rivers, ponds, and lakes. Their thick, resilient skin contains high levels of collagen, which promotes healing, making it an ideal natural bandage.
The nice thing is that when it actually dries out for the bears, it became like little shoes, like little leather shoes.
Jamie and her team had their work cut out for them. This was their first time ever using this treatment on a wounded bear.
So after we clean those wounds and make sure they're nice and clean, we went ahead and put a pain salve. After that, then we go ahead and put the tilapia on. And how we do that is pretty much lay it on the areas that are injured, and then we suture it to healthy skin.
The surgery was a success, and after 6 weeks of recovery, the bear was on the mend and ready to be released back into the wild.
What struck me was when we first found her, she was about 45 pounds, fairly small, had been living out here and, eating what she could. And when we let her go, she was, I want to say 75 pounds. So she'd gained within 6 weeks, 30 pounds or so. When she came out of the cage, I'm like, that's a different bear.
It's exciting to know that an animal that would normally have likely perished was now being released and out into habitat that was going to be really suitable for it.
She did turn back once to say goodbye. I'm saying that, but really I think she was just done. She was like, I'm feeling better and I'm ready to go back to my home.
That's looking better.
That's why we love what we do, because they have such a spirit to survive. And that's something that inspires all of us.
Following the fire, California Highway Patrolman David Fawson also found himself caring for an orphaned wild animal, a baby deer who was in need of help.
When we found there was literally fire right next to the road where we were at. And the fire department was actively working fires in and around us as we were driving down the road.
The baby deer was eventually transported to an animal sanctuary where she was named Kara after the Carr fire. The fawn was cared for there until she could be released back into the wild. Fawson's heroic actions earned him an award of compassion, as well as a very special nickname from his colleagues.
When I returned to work, I found at my desk that they posted a picture of me holding the fawn, and they changed my name to Sergeant Fawnson. It was very impressive to me to see the outreach of people throughout the country and the world of not just seeing an officer rescue a human life, but also to rescue animal life.
Here, we've seen stories that could have been even more tragic, but thanks to our rescue heroes, they weren't. I'm Ginger Z, and I'll see you next time.